Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Richards, may I have roll call, please?
President Anderson, let the record show that all 5 board members are present this evening.
Okay, I motion that the governing board adjourn to executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A, 3 and 4 regarding legal issues and regarding pending or contemplated litigation and/or settlement discussions in order to avoid or resolve same, and regarding legal issues related to vendor selection issues.
Second.
That's Amanda with the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Good evening. At this time, we will reconvene in open session. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I motion to approve the agenda. Second. Anna got the second. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, Mrs. Richards, it's time for the superintendent's report.
Good evening, President Anderson, members of the board. Tonight we have our next segment of Higley Adventures, which focuses on our kids. All right, now I want to focus on our students, and I want Mr. Allen Fields to come up and help me. Is he here? There he is, in the back. So congratulations to these Higley High students for achieving exceptional scores on the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation recognized these students for their academic promise based on their PSAT, the NMSQT scores. These students scored in the top 3 to 4%. So I'm going to let Mr. Fields introduce these kids and have them come up.
All right, I know that
Is it working?
it's got a green light on it. Hello, hello, there we go. All right, I know that Carson Wingert is not here. Carson is on his way back from China, participating in a international Mandarin speaking competition. And he's also our point of pride. I'm going to talk about him again in a minute, but he's still not here. So is Jaron here? Jaron, come on up. Ace Tift. Nice job, Jaron. All right. Caden Pope. Caden. Adam Alibi. Ryan Edom. Nice job, Ryan. Lucas Bradley. And Sierra Grandy. All right, well, we're extremely proud of these students and how they performed on the assessment, qualifying as committed students, and then we can do the other one right now.
We are, so don't let them run back to their seat yet, okay? Uh-oh, went too far. Let's see. We also want to congratulate Higley High student Cassidy Berg for achieving semi-finalist status with a score in the top 1% of the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. So is Cassidy here?
Cassidy is here. Come on up, Cassidy. Great job. Great job. You guys want to get a photo?
I do. I'm kind of on the photographer right now. She was waiting patiently.
We do?
Yeah, I think we're just going to stay because it's going up and down.
Hang around down here for the next highlight.
Sorry. We're staying.
Y'all are going to have to, yeah, don't go back.
Yeah, we're not going back.
Next, we want to recognize Belicia Reeves. And I'm going to I need the athletic director from Higley High School. No, he said you. He said Aaron Dilly has to come up here. So, Belicia capped a terrific track and field season this spring by winning gold in the AIA Division 2, state track and field championships. Reeves set school records on her path to the championship. The current junior also plays volleyball. We look forward to 2 more awesome years from Miss Reeves. So let's give her a round of applause. Mr. Dilly, do you want to say something?
Yes, Belize is a special young lady. Her impact on the school and community is seen by all the people who came to support her here. Did you know any of these people are coming? No, that's pretty cool. And she's only a junior, so we're gonna have a couple more of those to celebrate as well.
Oh my God, yeah, demonstration. Yeah.
All right, we're ready for points of pride. And we're going to start with Sossaman Middle School. I know we have our Dean Leslie Cook, our Assistant Principal Brandon Keeling here this evening. Now we'll give you this. Go.
All right. Governing board members, members of cabinet, thank you so much for having us here this evening and to give us an opportunity to celebrate some of the amazing people that help make Sossaman an A-rated school. And so we want to take pride in everything that they do. And so we are all here for the students. And so we want to start with our student. Michael, why don't you come on up and join us so we can tell everybody some great things about you.
So Michael is a quiet leader on our campus that has a kind heart and has received the most Thursday thank yous from staff and our other peers. Teachers describe Michael as honest, energetic, and driven as a student, giving 110% every day to his learning. He is hardworking, determined, and an excellent self-advocator. He consistently stays focused and actively participates in whole group discussions. His positive growth mindset serves as an excellent example for his peers, making him a valued Spartan of our school community. Something that stands out is every single day, Michael holds the door open for his peers at every transition, at lunchtime, and he gives a lot of fist bumps along the way. We appreciate your respect and accountability as one of our Spartan students. Good job, Michael. Michael.
Michael, you get to come back for a picture, buddy.
Michael, do you want to tell us who you brought with us tonight?
Family family.
Family. Yep. Lots of brothers and sisters, mom, dad, right?
All right, next up, we would like to celebrate our parent volunteer. It took a lot of coaxing to get this individual here because they don't love the limelight, but she's fantastic. So Michelle Morris, will you please come up and join us? She's going to be mad at me the rest of the school year. All right. Michelle has been a tremendous member of the Spartan community for a number of years. She's served as the PTSO treasurer for the past 2. Her unwavering desire to support the students, teachers, and administration of Sossaman does not go unnoticed. She played an important role in helping to put on our annual fall carnival this past Friday night and even baked cookies for our teachers during the parent-teacher conferences. Whenever Mr. Potts comes up with an idea to make Sossaman feel more like a family, Michelle's answer is always the same: how can I help? Michelle, you have helped tremendously to build the culture and success of Sossaman, and we are blessed to have you as part of our family. And Michelle, who did you bring with you tonight?
3 of my 4 daughters. So Mackenzie, Taylor, and Tegan are here.
We would like to bring our next points of pride, who is our classified staff, Jill Mendez. Come on up. Jill started as a parent at Sossaman, deciding to join our team as our media center specialist. Jill is a ray of sunshine, displaying a positive attitude and ongoing energy every day. She's always looking for ways to support students, staff, and clubs on campus. Jill does an amazing job at organizing all the athletic uniforms and handling parent questions to support their child at home. She has created a student-centered media center, helping with our TAs and providing a safe and calming environment. She is a problem solver that will always find the answer even if she doesn't have it, and goes above and beyond in supporting all teachers and staff on site. Spartan Nation would be a little less bright if you were not on our campus. Thank you for all you do. Who did you bring tonight?
I brought my family with me. Thank you, guys.
All right, and last but certainly not least, Miss Kelly Taylor is our certified awardee. Come on up, Kelly. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Kelly for just about 10 years, and she is a math teacher on the Spartan campus, and she began making her impact on the Spartan campus when she joined the family when the school opened. So she is what we call an OG Spartan, and she's been impacting our campus in a positive way ever since. Although she's already a phenomenal teacher with amazing experience, Kelly continues to pursue professional development opportunities to broaden her skill set to better serve her students. It is her desire to support her students and her ability to care for them and to come along the side of staff members that makes her such a tremendous leader on our campus. She is currently working on her national board certification, continues to train in building thinking classrooms, and serves as one of our department chairs. As if that wasn't enough, she's hardworking, passionate, and a truly great person to be around. We are so blessed to have you on our campus and look forward to several more years of you positively impacting the students, staff, and families of the Spartan Nation. Thank you, Kelly. And you have a couple guests here too, right?
I do. I have 2 out of 5 kids showed up. Thank you, Cole and AJ. And I have my coworkers there too. Thank you, Lexi and Rebecca.
Lexi, Rebecca, did you want to talk? No? Okay.
we're going to need Higley High School back up here. So administration from Higley High, Mr. Alan Fields. You could have just stayed up here, although I won't.
It's a great day to be a knight, right? So one of the great things about Higley High is it's filled with phenomenal people achieving great things day in and day out. Many of the people that we are honoring tonight are busy out achieving those great things, right? So I mentioned before that Carson Wingert is not here. He was just in a competition in China, an international competition for speaking Mandarin, and he's on his way back. But he placed third place in that competition with people from all over the world. An amazing feat, super proud of him. But Carson is one of those kids, he's awesome at everything he does. He's the perfect choice for Higley High School student points of pride. One would be hard pressed to find another student at any school in the state who's excelled at the level Carson has in the classroom. He's aced every class he's ever taken at Higley, even classes not on his schedule. Last year, he scored the highest score possible, a perfect score on an AP exam in a class he didn't take. Yeah, wow. In addition to classroom excellence, Carson has represented the Mandarin program at local, national, and now international competition, and he's been selected to travel abroad multiple times as part of his mastery in the program. Additionally, Carson's also represented Higley High in state and national robotics competitions. Carson always brings his programs, his family, and the Higley community pride in everything he does. Hopefully Carson can come and talk about his experience in China.
We will be inviting him because we're super proud of him and so excited.
All right, then our volunteer, Ms. Francine Lopez, is busy volunteering, as you would expect. But I've been principal for several years, almost 28 now, and I have never encountered someone who dedicates her time to so many different booster clubs. Francine works with almost every single booster club on our campus. There's scarcely a day or night that she's not volunteering at an event for one of those booster clubs. When she's not running an event, she's helping with their fundraising, their books, and their paperwork that they have to file. I know several of our booster clubs have expressed how grateful they are for her service, and we agree we're equally grateful for her efforts on behalf of our staff and students at Higley High. Then our classified staff, also not here. Mr. Ethan Haney. Ethan is the defensive coordinator for our girls flag football team who has a game going on right now at this time, so he's busy. It's amazing when you get to see a future star in the beginning of their path to success. Ethan is that future star. Ethan is a Higley High School alumni, and now he's a para. He became a para the year after he graduated. And he's also a coach on our campus, and he's very effective and professional in both of those positions. The thing that makes him unique is his personality. He finds a way to get to know each student and what motivates them. It's clear that the students know he cares about them and their success. That effective leadership is rare in someone so young. We're grateful he's on our team and hope we get to continue working with him throughout his bright future. Ethan is now working on his special education degree, and hopefully someday will become a teacher at Higley High. All right, now our point of pride who is here. Jen Acra, can you come up, please? Every year I try to get a hire of the year. When we hired Jen probably was that hire of the year. Yeah. Since arriving to Higley High as a last-minute replacement in our CTE department, Jen's done an incredible job of leading and growing the graphic design program at Higley High. In addition to producing high-quality yearbook with her students, Jen has dedicated countless hours to supporting our swim and dive team. She's the head coach, as well as taking on the role of lead advisor for our student council. We just had homecoming last week, and Jen was at the school hours and hours and hours making sure that that was a great event. In a very short amount of time, Jen has established herself as a tireless staff member who makes innumerable sacrifices to ensure that our students are provided with the superior academic and extracurricular experiences they deserve. We're grateful for all that she does for our students and our campus. And you brought some people with you?
My husband and my youngest of 3.
Thank you.
Next is Higley Virtual Academy, and we have Miss Tommy Bird here to acknowledge her award recipients.
Okay, so I also have a thin crowd tonight. Jacob Hildebrandt is our nominee for student. He's actually one of our Higley Learning Center students. Higley Learning Centers are a credit recovery program, so he's unfortunately not here tonight. I'm assuming he's working. He usually works nights, so. Okay, so Jacob Hildebrandt is one of HLC's most promising success stories. After overcoming some very difficult obstacles, he made the decision to continue his education and graduate high school through the Higley Learning Center. Since he started in HLC this past summer, he has demonstrated renewed dedication to his academic success and a commitment to his future goals. As a result of his work in HLC, Jacob has recovered enough credits to be back on track to graduate high school on time with the class of 2025 this May. After high school, Jacob is considering serving in the military and is interested in pursuing a career as a police officer. And he and his family have much to be proud of. So that's exciting to see somebody come that far. So. Sorry, I'm making a mess on the table here. Okay, next is Montana Flores. She is our classified staff, and she is my assistant, and she is amazing because I could not have done the last 3 months without her. Her contributions have been pivotal to the success of Higley Virtual Academy as we transition to new leadership this year. She has stepped up with unwavering commitment and exceptional customer service and communication skills. Her intelligence and problem-solving abilities have been invaluable, guiding us through challenges with a forward-thinking mindset. Montana's dedication to excellence has directly impacted my own success in my new role as principal, not to mention the fact that she keeps me laughing throughout the week, even when the chips are down. It is with immense gratitude that I honor Montana today. Thank you, Montana, wherever you are, for your hard work and your sense of humor. I look forward to the rest of our year together. And I actually know where she's in. She's in class because she's also getting her another degree, so she's amazing. Okay, sorry. Back. Okay, now we have someone who is here. Jaslyn Rice, come on up. Gotta frame it. Jaslyn Rice is an exceptional teacher who has transformed the learning experience for her students at Higley Virtual Academy. She is not just a math teacher, she's a source of compassion for her students. She guides her students with patience, enthusiasm, and clear communication. She's created a welcoming atmosphere in her classrooms where students feel safe to share ideas and take risks. Jazzy is very purposeful about helping her students connect in the virtual environment with each other through collaborative learning and with her through in-person and virtual tutoring. Her ability to relate to students and understand their academic needs ensures they feel fully supported, which is so important in the online learning environment. The Higley Virtual Academy is successful because of the unwavering commitment of teachers like Jazzy. Thank you, Jazzy, for your dedication, creativity, and heart. Oh, and you have to say who you brought with you today.
Oh, I brought my mom.
Yay, Mom.
Do what?
President Anderson, members of the board, we have some upcoming events. As everybody knows, or I think everybody knows, Election Day is next Tuesday, November 5th. That's a big day for our country and our school district for sure. Next Thursday, November 7th at 6 p.m. is the Best Buddies Talent Show at the HCPA. And Miss Miller will tell you that's one of the favorite events of the whole entire school year. So we encourage you guys to attend if you can. Monday, November 11th is no school for Veterans Day. The 12th, Tuesday, there's a parent event, a Narcan harm reduction virtual meeting for parents. And then last, on Thursday, November 14th, there's a parent and student event, social media production here at the district office. I thought we had one more about the visit to Higley Traditional Academy. Huh? It's coming? Okay. All right. Those are the events. Thank you.
Ms. Wade was clarifying that it's also on the 14th, the visit.
It is. It's in my calendar. It is. So they're having technical difficulties between what I have up here and what I have up here.
Okay. Perfect.
Correction. Thursday, November 14th at 9 a.m., school visits to Higley Traditional Academy. We'd love for you all to join us.
Thank you. Okay, I think those have left, but it's a good time if you'd like to leave. So if you go home and get some dinner and do some schoolwork for our students. Next on the agenda are the requests to speak. Can we go ahead and play the video, please?
We value input from our constituents. This time on our agenda has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Those that wish to speak should have filled out speaker cards, which are due prior to the start of our meeting. Members of the board may not discuss, comment, or take action on matters raised that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01I, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Also, we ask that audience members practice proper public meeting decorum, refraining from either negative or positive responses, including clapping or verbal outbursts, to ensure fairness to all points of view. Those that refuse to follow these rules may be asked to leave. In accordance with Policy BEDH public participation at board meetings, if considered necessary, the governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period in order to ensure that each individual has an opportunity to address the board. The president may also set a time limit for individual speakers. Thank you for your cooperation.
Also want to read a statement that the district is prohibited under state law from using public resources to influence the outcome of an election. Accordingly, we ask that all speakers refrain from discussing candidates or issues that will present in the upcoming election. Our first to speak is Jessica Smith.
Hello. Do I just go ahead and start?
All right, my name's Jessica Smith. I am a mom of 4 kids, 2 who have graduated from Williamsfield, and 1 at Cooley and 1 at Chaparral. I'm also a certified teacher and currently working as an for the Arizona ACEs Consortium, Adverse Childhood Experiences that stands for. And I am here to speak on the need for more mental health support in our schools. The American School Counseling Association recommends that that we have a 250 to 1 student ratio, and currently in Arizona, the rate is 677 to 1 students. Our teachers are currently teaching in a state that we have this really low teacher-to-student or high teacher-to-student ratio. We are also teaching at a time where we have a pediatric mental health crisis and a parental mental health crisis that was just issued by the Surgeon General at the beginning of this month. Additionally, I have a personal story that goes with this. My daughter Clara, who is at Cooley Middle School, has a congenital heart defect. She has complex medical trauma and has been through many heart surgeries and other surgeries throughout her life. Just recently, there was a social media gun threat at Cooley that really scared a ton of the kids. It has been a huge effort to get her into school, and these social media school threats and the things that are going on have made it even harder. Luckily, gratefully, Colleen Crockett was there at her school that day and was able to pull her aside, work through it. She's worked through things like this with her several times before, and instead of me having to pick her up like I had to do several times when she was at Chaparral, she stayed at school, and she continues to go to school. All of the research shows that our students need to feel safe in order to learn. There is nothing, like if you look at any of the research, it shows the kids need to be in the cortex part of their brain, or anything that we're trying to teach them is a complete waste of time. We do not have enough mental health professionals in Arizona to support our students. Luckily, we do have some great counselors at Higley. Recently, it was also brought to my attention that there was an issue with the counselors doing the work that Colleen did for my student, and I'm here to advocate for counselors continuing to do this work. I also brought in a couple papers that I gave to somebody to pass out afterwards, showing the statistics that I just went over, showing that we are literally number 50 out of 50 in the number of counselors that we have in our school. And additionally, I brought in the list from the American Counselor Association on what counselors are appropriately supposed to be able to do. Thank you. Woo.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Forgive me. The next, is it S-E-A-K? Seek? Smith. Thank you, and I apologize.
Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Seek Smith. I'm the founder of Mom Army. We are a national coalition of moms and survivors fighting to protect the innocence of children and to end exploitation. As educators, you bear the responsibility of guiding students while respecting parental boundaries, assigning books laden with Assigning books laden with vulgar and sexual themes undermines your duty to maintain a safe and appropriate learning environment. I ask you, would any teacher feel comfortable reading these passages aloud at a public meeting or with their neighbors' children? If not, why is it deemed acceptable for minor children to read them? We must prioritize children's emotional and intellectual maturity over fleeting literary trends. I am shocked and appalled that a book like The Kite Runner, which graphically depicts rape, is part of the district's curriculum. How did this book make it through any form of district screening? This concern is not merely personal, it reflects a broader issue impacting every family in the district. It is absurd that parents who express concerns and exposing their children to such violent content are met with threats and harassment. Children are being forced to engage with literature that lacks educational merit, and we must demand better for their futures. Furthermore, I'm troubled that the only book on Muslim culture in Afghanistan included the curriculum features depictions of rape, incest, and sex slavery. What message does this send to students about Muslim culture? This approach appears counterproductive and potentially harmful, fostering Islamophobic sentiments among impressionable young minds. In conclusion, I urge you to reconsider the inclusion of these explicit novels in the district's curriculum. There are countless books that meet educational standards without subjecting students to graphic and inappropriate content. Schools have a responsibility to provide literature that is enriching and educational without crossing the line into material that is harmful to children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Donna Carlson.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the governing board. I too am deeply troubled by the educational material being given to students. It's clear the teachers have been allowed to select books without a documented approval process or clear guidelines to ensure their appropriateness. This is especially alarming when these books contain explicit content that requires parental consent. Instead of attacking parents who are rightfully concerned about protecting their children, we should be holding educators accountable. Why isn't the focus on the appropriateness of these materials? Instead, we see parents being bullied for advocating for their children's innocence. While educators push graphic content, this has to stop. As a district, well, I want to specifically address the approval process for these materials. Who approved these novels in 2022? And what steps were taken to ensure they were appropriate? I have serious concerns about the thoroughness of the review process. Even more disturbing is the fact that the district has stated it won't review these books unless specifically requested. These books should have all been vetted and removed when the first complaint was made at the end of last school year. As a district, you have the responsibility to provide educational materials that not only meet state and federal guidelines, but also protect minor children whose brains do not fully develop until their mid-20s. Perhaps some research should be done on the damage this kind of content can do to the young minds. The claim that Higley does not teach critical race theory is misleading. Many of these books contain significant CRT themes. The district cannot afford to overlook the importance of parental consent and the need for a comprehensive review of all materials. Every book assigned should meet educational standards, and I hope that the committee reviewing the books will keep these priorities in mind. It's also deeply disturbing that teachers and individuals are attacking parents on social media, and even the only board member who is standing up for the innocence of children. We should all want better for the district and work together to protect minor children regardless of our political beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sheena, and is it Gluck?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sheena Gluck. I have two daughters in the Higley district, one at Cooley Middle School. She's a former Points of Pride recipient, and one at Chaparral Elementary. I wanted to come in today to talk to the board about the social media shooting threat that affected Cooley Middle School prior to fall break. This was a very emotional and difficult time for parents, students, teachers, admin, everyone. However, I do have a respectful criticism of how things were handled with the student body. I was informed by our school administration that the school would not be addressing this in any way formally with the students, and that the correct approach that the district had chosen was to let time pass and for it to just be forgotten. I know that my students have been in the district since kindergarten. They have not had a year go by where they're not doing lockdown drills or something related to school shooting awareness. We cannot ignore school shootings. We don't do that as a district in the first place. So I would challenge everyone to consider going forward that when these types of invasive social media trends come into our school districts, that we take a different approach and we actually do speak with our student population. I do think that with the proper help of school counselors and other resources, that we can put together an appropriate messaging for children to understand how to report these types of issues, what happens after they report them, and really make sure that all of the students know what is going on. I was told that pulling the children into some type of an assembly, which was what was recommended by the Gilbert Police Department, was inappropriate, as students would feel publicly threatened bringing them together. That could be something that they may have felt, but I do think that we could have, as a district, recorded messaging or started some type of curriculum that could have been shared in homeroom classrooms or something of that effect. These children have become desensitized to school shootings, and they do throw these words around very flippantly. And we need to, especially with our middle schoolers and high schoolers, rein them back in and teach them the appropriate ways to handle this. They are mature enough at 11, 12, 13, and beyond to have these important discussions about what's going to happen, how to report it, who to report it to, and I do think that it would reduce the reposting and sort of the hysteria that took place. To that end, I also would like to share that because that this went completely unchecked for a week, we had multiple families that did leave the school district, and that's really unfortunate. I do think the kids are mature enough to hear public discussion on this and be coached on how to move forward. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, I motion to approve.
President Anderson?
Yes.
Is that the end of public comments? Okay. Can I just ask, can we get in status like what our policy is for, in the case of Cooley, what did happen or what our policy is, just so we're clear going forward? I'd appreciate that.
Yes.
Mrs. Richards, could you also speak with the parent and just let them know too? So could you also speak with the parent and let them know that spoke, just so it's not hearsay information, things that she has the information. Thank you.
Yes.
I motion to approve consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.11. Amanda seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I'd like to thank all of those involved in the gift and donations that have so generously donated to the district and its schools. Thank you very much. Moving on to information items, 7.1, the Special Education Day School Report for fiscal year 2025 first quarter. And Ms. Miller, you have some information for us?
Yes, Governing Board President and members of the board. This is just the quarterly report that we bring to you at the end of each quarter regarding our students that are placed in our private day schools. We have a budget that's approved at the beginning of the year for 2.5, and as you can see, as of right now, we are within that allocation. Any questions?
Thank you. Moving on to 7.2, the quarterly ESI report. That will be given to us by Mr. Moore.
Yep, Board President, members of the board, this is much like Shauna's report, the quarterly report for our ESI, Education Service Inc. This is our contracted substitutes and also contracted employees who have retired from the district.
Questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Moore. 7.3, the construction update presentation with Mr. Moore.
Yes, President Anderson, members of the board. This was recommended to bring forth an update from a governing board member just on where we're at in the last couple years of construction and kind of highlight some of the projects that we've done. Gustavo Landeros, our Director of Maintenance and Construction, will be helping me in this presentation. So just a little bit about the district. I think sometimes this goes unnoticed and what we have to maintain and upkeep on a daily basis. Higley Unified School District was established, in 1909. That was with HTA and a small pocket of students. The oldest building is coincidentally on HTA. That building was built in 1985. That's now going on 39 years old. HTA does have multiple buildings of varying age. That campus was built in kind of phases, and so, but there is one building on there that is from 1985 that we still occupy today. Approximately 10 school buildings were built from 2005 to 2008 during Higley's years of hypergrowth. During that time, almost all those schools were built by school facilities dollars. At the time, Higley's enrollment was so rapid that it vastly exceeded the occupation, the capacity of the district at the time. And so all those schools, including, you think of Gateway, Chaparral, what am I missing?
Santan.
No, Santan was the other one. Cortina, that's the other one. Were built during that time. And so, again, those were funded by school facilities dollars by the state, and that state formula to allocate dollars is based on capacity. I do want to point out, though, that is now approaching our 20-year window, and with a slew of schools being built at the same time, that does create some different circumstances with also maintaining those schools on the similar time. Our newest building, most of this board was here and approved this. Construction of this building was completed in July 2023. That is on Higley High's campus, and that is now over a year old already. Hard to believe. Some other highlights, the district has a little over 50 plus buildings and modulars. We actually still have 3 modulars that we're maintaining, where our BEST program is. Ms. Miller's BEST program is still in that. We have 1.7 million square feet of building square footage, and our average age of all buildings is 18 years. So just a little bit on how projects are selected. And when I talk about projects, I'm referring to, this isn't our everyday budget and that Gustavo has in terms of maintaining or replacing equipment that has failed. We're talking about projects that are major projects is the term that I've often used in board presentations and the capital budget. Priority number 1 is safety. And so we look at school safety. We have a standing biweekly committee where we assess and we constantly revisit safety concerns. Mr. Walker is a part of that. He has good relationships with Gilbert PD as well as Queen Creek. And so we are constantly involved in making sure that we are addressing any immediate concerns and then also prioritizing maybe concerns that we have or safety concern projects that we have that may require phases. For example, our security cameras, right? It'd be nice to replace those all at once. Right now with budget constraints, right, we're phasing those in on the highest priority first, right? So our exterior buildings are entrances, and then we'll look to expand that. So we work diligently to address and fund those capital projects and support our safe school environment. That's our number 1 priority. After we've achieved some immediate sense of that, and there is no immediate safety needs, again, we do have phased projects. We look to work on our capital maintenance plan. And so that's a 5 to 10 year plan where we look on our annual maintenance needs, such as large HVAC units. We have a lot of school districts that are in central plants. So that means they have a chiller and or cooling tower, and they don't have package units per se. They have a large central plant. Those typically need to be replaced every 20 years. And so we look at a lot of those timeline schedules and try to be proactive in replacing and budgeting for those items. It also includes roofing, weatherization, flooring, playgrounds, turf sports field, just to mention a few. We also, and later in this presentation, we try to leverage as much state funding for these projects as we can. But sometimes the state doesn't either have the funds to appropriate to a lot of these needs, and then we utilize either our capital budget if it comes to a point where it's either failing or we absolutely need to replace this to continue to address and move our maintenance plan forward. Or else it will continue to stack up. Those capital needs don't go away, right? They just continue to grow year after year. Looking at some of the projects, the major projects of the last 2 years, like I mentioned earlier, Higley High has had a number of different campus construction projects, including the building addition and some various campus improvements. As I mentioned earlier, the building addition was completed in July 2023. We also completed a modified traffic flow, which addressed the safety concern with backing up traffic on Pecos. I know Mr. Fields is here. We've talked to him multiple times. That, after some time, parents got used to it and are now utilizing that traffic flow, and it's getting people off of Pecos and keeping our students being dropped off on our campus, not in the middle of the street. A part of those completions, when you modify an area, the town of Gilbert has modified the traffic flow light. So anytime you make an improvement in an area that hasn't been touched in a while, typically the ADA compliance or any sort of code compliance that has been changed during that time, we're obligated to update or bring that area up to code. One of those included the ADA modifications to the light, the Higley light, which was adding some various crosswalks for ADA and some different push buttons. And so when you renovate or construct a project, if you leave it as is, you're not obligated to bring that up to code, but once you touch that, then that becomes subject to Town of Gilbert or any ADA, you have to bring that up to code. So those are some underlining expenses that come into play when we do large construction projects. We were aware of that one early with our relationships with the Town of Gilbert. A lot of these funds we utilized were not just our capital dollars. So a big part of that traffic flow in the Town of Gilbert light was adjacent ways funding. I think 2 years ago, the board approved levying additional funds for adjacent ways. And so that's where it's being used in these areas where they're public right of way and they're being put back into improving those areas. We also completed the weatherization exterior painting this summer. I've mentioned several times that was a grant Mr. Landos worked on, as well as myself, for 2 years. That total grant funded from the school facilities division was $1.1 million. And so that was a big win for us. And I'll mention how many more applications we have in the hopper later in this presentation. In 2023, this summer, we finished the Cortina flooring replacement. We have some pictures later in the presentation highlighting that. That was the original flooring of that school, and we mentioned earlier that was built in 2007. In 2023, Sossaman bus loop expansion. We utilized a number of adjacent ways to expand that bus loop and create some additional parking, as well as a safer drop-off for students. In 2024, we had some preschool renovations. Again, some of the highlights were one of the preschools had not age-appropriate toilets. So we actually got age-appropriate toilets for the littles and created some different office space for the preschools. For that, we utilized the capital lease funds that were returned to the district. That was now 3 years ago, where we refinanced those buildings and the lease or returned about $1.6 million back to the district. So again, a lot of these projects, we are leveraging a number of different funds to complete. 2024, Williams Hill Track and Field was replaced. That was utilizing capital dollars, as field and tracks are not subject to school facilities dollars. So let's highlight a few things. Mr. Landos is going to talk about some of the before and after improvements and how they've improved some of the efficiencies within the maintenance department.
Good evening, everyone. So this is the restrooms at Higley High School. As you can see, the top two pictures, you can see they look outdated, they look dark. So we came in, new flooring, new lighting, tiled the walls all the way up, new partitions, new sinks, made sure they look modern and nice, and it seems like the students have been loving it. They've been taking care of them. We haven't had any major issues as far as them tagging anything or breaking anything, which has been really great to see. This was kind of an initiative that they wanted to see happen, so it was really good for us to be able to make it happen for them and bring all those bathrooms looking to that good condition that they do now.
And I want to make a point too. A few of you attended the community meetings when we were going through this process, and the students, this was their #1 area where they did not feel safe. If you look at the top, they did not feel safe using the bathrooms. These were verbatim quotes from surveying the students. And so actually, creating a space that the students feel safe to use, and they do have pride in keeping them maintained. I was not optimistic that they would stay in the shape they are, but Mr. Fields can speak to it too. They are taking honor in having a nice facility and not, like Gustav said, breaking it, and tagging it or like a traditional high school.
So this is our weatherization project that we did here at Higley High School. You can kind of see from the top picture, the buildings are old, and you can start to see the age and the wear on them. This process goes through an assessment. They do some testing on the buildings to make sure that moisture isn't able to get back into the buildings. While we did this project, we took advantage to add logos and add as much branding as we could to the buildings. Some of the issues that we encountered with this were some of the stem walls to the buildings when the dirt was pulled back had water damage to them. So we took advantage of that to come in and make all the proper repairs that we needed to do to get everything back to normal. We also had some issues with the windows on the campus. A lot of the window seals had failed already. So this was another opportunity for us to come in and replace a ton of windows at that campus and just get everything sealed and make sure that the building looks in good condition, right? The other thing that goes into this is all the hardware for the doors, all the seals get replaced to try to keep as much moisture out with the winds and the rain and all that. So ultimately, I think we're very happy with the results.
Yeah, I'll just add 2 points to this too. Like, weatherization doesn't mean just painting. It's weatherizing the building to ensure that's energy efficient and that it's holding air. There's a number of different things that it goes through. We also get independently assessed. The SFB does not just allow us to sign off on the job complete. There's an independent assessor that also says, yes, this checks all the state's needs in terms of being meeting the weatherization priority. If you notice on the far right, we took advantage of also making some safety enhancements with the fencing. If you remember, the parking lot was actually fenced at Higley High. We were protecting the parking lot. So we actually repurposed a lot of that fence on the campus and fenced on the bottom right. You can see that that's actually an exterior exit to that building. So we took the opportunity to create some additional safety measures and secure areas where there could be, that was really open to the public. And so now that's secure and creating safe entrances across the campus.
So this is another one of Higley High School weatherization. On the right, you can see the new coping cap, very modern look to the building. Again, stem wall issues on this building, and it just took a lot of extra looking at and assessing it just because of those issues, right? We wanted to make sure that we addressed all of the needs that we had there, and so I feel like you can see the nice logo on it turned out great. So this is the Higley High School marquee. We were really proud of this project and being able to make that corner look really nice, right? And to be able to have that communication with the community, be able to post those things on there. We ran new electrical to this. It was mainly funded by Higley High School, which was another great point to this project. And it's an awesome sign. I mean, I think we've had tons of compliments on it. A lot of people have been really happy seeing that. We did training for the staff to make sure that they knew how to use the sign and make sure that they could get the most out of it. This is Cortina Elementary. So You can kind of see in the media center, there's tape on the floor holding down the carpet. So we made sure we came in, replaced all the old carpet with new carpet, did polished concrete in the common areas like hallways and front office. We did VLT in the gyms to try to get a better flooring. It looks really nice. We were able to paint court lines on it. And the biggest thing with flooring, at least in my perspective, is being able to reduce the amount of time that it takes to clean it, that it takes to maintain it. We had tile on all of it, and so every year we're having to come in and wax it. And it was a lot of extra work and a lot of extra costs that we didn't want to have to keep doing. So this is kind of the new standard that we want to set for the district as far as carpet in the classrooms and polished concrete in the common areas.
I'll also point out carpet squares provide an easier, if a singular carpet square has a spill, it's a lot easier to replace. We also have attic stock now with the plant foreman on site. And so if there was a spill on the current carpet, or the prior carpet, right, we have to cut a strip out, seam the carpet in. This allows us to maintain, if there is a spill that we can't either vacuum up or clean up, to easily replace those carpets and kind of create a seamless kind of environment.
So this is our Sossaman Middle School bus loop. Sossaman was having some issues with parking. There wasn't a ton of space in the front of the school for staff. There's a requirement that we have to meet to have a certain amount of parking spaces open for the preschool as well. So those were some of the challenges. So we came in and we added, I think it was over 40 or 50 spots in the back lot here. You can kind of see where the renovations happened in the middle there. We expanded the driveway to make it easier for buses to get in and out of there. And we also added a ton of sidewalks so that kids didn't have to unload in the dirt. All the buses can pull in, they all fit, and we can offload all the kids right onto a sidewalk, which obviously is addressing the safety, making sure that they're not crossing the road when they're not supposed to. This is our all-inclusive playground at Chaparral Elementary. The top part was funded through a grant that Ms. Kim landed for us. And the bottom one, we paid out of our capital, but it turned out to be amazing. It has a shark, right? So the kids love it. It's all-inclusive, which means that you could take a student in a wheelchair and bring them all the way up into that playground and let them play with the rest of the kids, which is something that we're aiming to do at all the campuses.
Yeah, Chaparral is a larger cross-cap program, and so that was as part of the priority from not only admin, but some of their staff at that campus to make sure that they have that inclusivity.
And this is our Williamsfield High School track and turf. This is one of the projects that I'm pretty proud of. It turned out awesome. When we started planning for this project, we knew that there was going to be issues that we ran into that we probably didn't see coming. And one of the big issues we had there was the soil. Once we took soil samples there, we realized that the soil was really unstable, and any work that we did there would probably end up failing if we didn't take the right precautions to prep, right? And so we came in and stabilized the soil and made sure that this is going to last as long as we possibly can for the students, right? It came out really cool with the track with the two separate colors. We ended up going with a higher end infield mix to be able to keep that field as cool as possible. We did upgrade the water cannons as well to ensure that they could provide the water all the way to the middle of the field and make sure we had the right coverage everywhere. And yeah, just something we're really proud of.
And I want to highlight too, this was already on our radar because this turf fields last anywhere between 8 and 10 years. This one being older technology as it was installed, what was that, prior to 2016? Right, that's my math, yeah. And so this was on our radar. We did several tests. They have impact tests that are done by independent people. And they test the impact by dropping basically a ball from various heights and kind of simulating maybe what a football player would go through or a soccer player if they were to fall from a certain height. This field failed on 9 of the 11 areas. And so it reassured that we were on the timeline to replace this field. And so, like Gustavo said, a part of that was also just making sure that we did it right. With the soil moving, we've had several cracks along the track where basically the track is creating a crack. Now it becomes a safety concern with students being able to run that. And so we addressed a lot of that in this project proactively to make sure that this is there for at least 10 to 15 years and not have to come back in here. We do have a video time lapse, which I'd like to play. See if IT can play that. Not played again, sorry. So we're trying to do better at documenting our projects and sharing, and I thought the time lapse was a really cool project. You have to start that from the start, and so we did that, and we maintained that through. So looking upcoming, we have the Williamsfield Student Park Rapid drop-off. We're still looking at leveraging a stronger queuing space to get people off of Higley Road and onto that Higley High campus. I want to thank Ms. Schultz for working with her connections with the town of Gilbert and basically confirming that they have no intention to put a light basically at the pool entrance. So we are moving forward. Right to date, we have a PO in place for civil engineer. Mr. Landos is working with them, and we're evaluating options to then bring forth to bid out in a contract. We do anticipate leveraging adjacent ways funding for that. That is a public right-of-way space that would be considered a fire lane, that parent drop-off, and so that would be eligible for adjacent ways funds. And so hopefully that will cover a majority of the cost, but again, we're in that preliminary phase, trying to really identify how much capacity or how much they call it queuing space, we can get in that parent drop-off more than what we're currently doing. The Cortina water main repair, that is on the agenda for later tonight. That turned out to be about $33,000. That is, we were just waiting for the final approval for SFB, but we fully anticipate them funding that. It just, again, another thing that was immediate and we had to address it. Power Ranch roof replacement, back in 22, there was an assessment done for $22,000. Sometime in the time between, no forward progress was made on that, so we are been picking that up and trying to move forward with that. That Power Ranch roof is 20 years old. A general timeline for roofs are 20, and so we are working with SFB to let us move into that next phase, which is procuring a bid to replace that roof. Higley High intercom replacement, that is also right now sitting with SFB waiting for funding. They have approved the application, basically have the intentions of funding it. Now they just need to come through with the money. A lot of our projects sit in this. We don't know the timeline, but the intercom replacement's an integral part in how their campus communicates. And that is recognized by the School Facilities Board as something that will fund. And so again, we're trying to leverage that grant as much as we can. I also wanted to highlight a couple of the grants that in our everyday projects, we are also still applying for grants and trying to pursue other funding sources. We submitted a grant twice now it's called the COPS grant. This is a federal grant that basically funds security enhancements. We applied for $500,000. We were denied both times. That grant, unfortunately, with our district and our free and reduced population, that has often hindered us in a lot of these grant applications. They considered free and reduced percentage one of the main criteria, and basically whether the campus is safe or not, or it's one of the matrix criteria. And so being a low free and reduced percentage puts us at the tail end of a lot of these grant applications. That was one of the reasons why we were denied in this former application process. WIFA, the Water Conservation Grant Program, we're working with a $3 million grant for over a year now. Unfortunately, this last legislative cycle, the WIFA was cut $130 million in funding, and they pulled all grant applications. So that grant was going to fund the conversion of Power Ranch has a large footprint of turf, grass, and we were going to utilize that money to eliminate a number of that grass fields, either convert them to turf and or make a desert landscape to reduce water impact. Basically, that was the grant was for. Fortunately, again, the legislative cycle cut that funding. The grant, they pulled that grant immediately, and that was denied. I want to also highlight, like Ms. Anderson highlighted earlier, PTOs make a number of donations to our district, and we're very thankful for them. Just recently, a couple of the projects that I think immediately are the Santan drop-off. They provided shade structures and misters. Just tonight, you approved a $39,000 in furniture donation from a vendor. In addition, we are constantly working with SRP on rebates. They approve up to $350,000 in rebates for energy-efficient initiatives and projects. We are working, and we've rebuilt those relationships to leverage that rebate application, and so Gustavo's doing a great job with ensuring that any lighting replacement or any energy-efficient thing that we do that's eligible for SRP's rebate, that we're capturing that. And so moving on to pending SFD construction projects. Much like the grants I mentioned earlier, this is the main grant that we have available to school districts for approving construction projects. We currently have, 7 applications in the hopper. I estimated basically award based on what was recently approved price per square foot on Higley High. So that number is an estimate. But again, we are doing our best to utilize the School Facilities Division grant program. A lot of these grants have been in the queue for multiple years. I have a notes section on there. Unfortunately, it's just subject to their funding ability. And every district has multiple applications in there. And so this comes down to priority, and they have a scoring matrix as well they use to prioritize projects. They did recently start to honor projects that have been in the hopper for a longer period of time. So projects like the Power Ranch roof that's been in there for 3+ years will get greater priority than an application that's submitted more recently. So that was a great enhancement this year to their scoring rubric. With that is a quick update on some construction that we've done recently, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Moore, thank you for the update on Williams Field. I know I've been pushing that because, as you mentioned about Higley students being dropped off in the middle of the streets, then I see every morning Williams Field students being dropped off in the middle of the street and the backup. So hopefully we have a solution soon, since the town wasn't able to help us with that. And then thank you for the grant updates. I know I had asked for that a couple months ago on grants and the things that we apply for, trying to get the most funds that we can. So I appreciate that. And all of the construction looks beautiful too. It's the Williams Field, a teacher said to me when we did the ribbon cutting that she felt like she had just got her LASIK because it's so pretty and beautiful out there. And I know that was a necessity with the track field and us being able to practice on it, but it looks really nice. Thank you.
President Anderson, I was just gonna piggyback off Board Member Schultz in that we just went on our Cortina walkthrough and their gym looks fantastic.
Awesome.
And all of the updates and stuff that you did. It looks really nice. It was great to see.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, both of you, for your information, for putting this together. Okay, we are moving on to 7.4, Policy DJE, the bidding and purchasing procedures, first read. Mr. Moore is proposing changes to the policy.
Yeah, President Anderson, members of the board. Me and Ms. Zimmerman talked, and it was just easier to strike through the old policy and just add the new, but I will highlight the major changes include the addition of the last paragraph, which is the registered sex offender prohibition. I butchered that. But there's a couple statutes that were added, and those statutes are now added to the policy and the language regarding that. Those statutes is now in the recommended board policy. I do want to point out, though, that we do require all vendors to check in with our system, and so we also have that layer in addition to this board policy.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments regarding this?
President Anderson, Mr. Moore. So there's no changes to any of the other language? It was just, or there is additional changes other than the sex offender one? Sorry, I didn't compare it like word for word.
Yeah, I can provide in stats a better comparison, but like some of these updates include just bringing it up to date with what is currently in the procurement threshold. So the required bidding in the old policy says 50,000, and the new one it's 100,000. That's currently what's in statute, and that's what requires bidding. So the policy itself was just outdated in terms of. There's another thing that lists that it requires anything above 10,000. You may have verbal quotes. That is not allowable anymore. You have to have written quotes. So some of those smaller changes, but I'll be happy to highlight all those changes in status if you would like.
That's okay. I wanted to look into possibly adding additional changes to the policy while we're working on getting it updated. One of the issues was allowing contracts to exceed 5 years without stringent yearly reassessments of funding, which could lead to possible financial strains and changes in the budget availability or economic downturns that could impact those types of contracts. I've got several, and I won't go through all of them, but there's also the policy consolidates significant procurement authority under the superintendent without required independent oversight. And with, this comes up often, but with our previous history, I'd like to make sure that there is oversight and that the board is not really relinquishing our approval authority. There's also the issue of contracts that are, over $100,000. I'd like to be able to see some sort of amendment made that all service contracts that exceed over 10% of the approved amount come back to the board for possible reapproval. There's issues with JOC contracts and the fact that if we hire a contractor and then they subcontract out to any type of JOC contracts, that we have no oversight in that. And it could potentially be a contractor that we have a problem with but because of the way that it's written, we technically wouldn't have a say on who our contractors hire as subcontractors. So I'd like to be able to see something written in there. And then the biggest one is I just talking to community members, the trust between taxpayers and when it comes to things that like bonds and overrides and bond packs, the fact that we have contractors who heavily fund the bond packs, and then it creates this pay-to-play type of image amongst taxpayers. And so I'd like to potentially consider adding some sort of provision that if any corporation or individual or any contractor that donates to a bond pack, that whether it's a set limit on how long that they can't bid on a project, or that they can't bid at all on a project that they've attempted to fund through the bond pack. And I think that that's necessary to get the trust back of the community, because this is a huge concern. Those are just a few, but I can send you what I have, and then we can discuss it further from there.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could.
Thank you.
President Anderson, point of clarification. As far as I understand it, the PAC is separate. It is a separate everything. So as far as what this is and what business we do, I hear you with respect to your concerns, and I think they're valid. I argue that is laws beyond what we can deal with in terms of financing and how that stuff works. So I don't see how, if we go forward with whatever these changes are and how some of this gets communicated to us as we progress, I mean, we can't change some of the laws that exist with respect to how businesses can give money to PACs and what those things are from. I mean, that would be Citizens United, and that's a larger issue than this. So if that is something that is pertinent, maybe when we get communicated on it next, kind of include part of that. But as far as I understand it, those would be separate from where we are at.
President I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We can get legal advice to make sure we understand everything, but Christine's taken notes of what Vice President Van Hook shared, and then she'll provide something in writing to Mr. Moore. So we'll go from there.
President Anderson, I've got it all typed up, so I don't want her to type too much up because I can give it to her all in writing. But as far as laws, there really are no laws, but we as a board can create policy as long as it doesn't violate law. And so nothing prevents companies from donating to the PAC. And yes, they are a separate, considered a separate organization. But ultimately, what happens is these contractors donate to the PAC, hoping that if the bond and override pass, that then they're going to be given a contract to do the work. And so that's where the whole pay-to-play comes in, and that's what the community is concerned about. And so if we had something in place to say, okay, well, if they're going to fund it, then there's an opportunity, or there's a provision that would prevent them from being able to bid, and that this pay-to-play type of scheme wouldn't be involved, then maybe we can regain the trust of the community and possibly get more people to vote to pass bonds and overrides. But anyway, I'll send it to you, and we'll go from there.
President Anderson, question, again, because this is not pertinent to what our policy is. So how the PAC functions and that process is separate from here. I would like to ask that whenever these issues are, at least we are made aware of it. So when this comes through for a second read, things aren't just included, and we can go through that in terms of, I don't know what that looks like for you, President Anderson and Ms. Zimmerman, when you put that stuff forward as far as like what suggestions are there, what is in policy in place, and all of that jazz. Because again, I think it gets, I would be grateful for legal's assistance with respect to campaign financing and things that are separate from us, because this is a process that is part of and ingrained in the American system. And so being frustrated that schools are participating in the system that everybody else is already participating in puts us at a severe disadvantage in terms of functioning. And again, this would be things beyond our control because these are private businesses. This is a PAC that is separate from what we can do as an actual organization.
President Anderson?
Oh, yep.
I was just going to ask if maybe whatever Ms. Van Hook sends to Christine, if the rest of the board could look at it too, because it sounds like there's quite a bit, and I think it could get convoluted if we try and add that to what we have. So if we can see what you have and what you're suggesting kind of separately, then we can kind of see where some of that might mesh together. I'm trying to think of a good process because typically in policy there's not that many changes recommended. To that extent, it's usually a word change or maybe something a little bit different, a dollar amount, just something like that.
President Anderson, member Reed, so I can, there's no really hurry to bring this back to address the main reason, because like I said, we have things in place that we already practice for vendors to catch, if they are registered sex offenders. So I can bring this back as a second read in information and kind of omit our typical practice of going right to action, but we can continue to discuss this because I feel confident that we have procedures in place to address the major changes in this policy. So if it needs more time, we can do another information session.
Well, yeah, I think giving us some time to see what Ms. Van Hook's recommending, and then also for you guys to look at it, because I was trying to listen and follow on how much of that perhaps would go into this policy, maybe something belongs somewhere else. And so just understanding where that would all go in, what it would look like. So then obviously we can have, like you said, Mr. Moore, another conversation on what would go into this policy.
So Board Member Reese, because there are questions about this, if she sends it, we could share what Ms. Van Hook shares with you in status.
Yes, and she said she already has it typed up, then
Okay.
just so we can all just look and follow along.
Absolutely. So, and then we can work on how we proceed.
President Anderson. And obviously, like, I wouldn't expect, like, for any of this to happen without legal looking at it. So, yeah, so we would, take all the necessary steps to ensure everybody sees it.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone's input on that. Okay, now we're on to 7.5, policy BEDA, notification of board meetings, first read, with Mrs. Richards with some changes.
Thank you, President Anderson. This is a first read of updates due to legislative changes to BEDA, notification of board meetings. Except for a meeting through technological devices, the agenda for the public meeting is required to include notice of the time the public will have access, physical access to the meeting place. So for example, tonight it was 4:30 because of the executive session. Normally when we start at 6, it's 5:30, but that's being posted so the public knows.
As you just stated, that's, we are already doing this. We're
Yes.
just updating the policy.
Yes.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
President Anderson, is there any way we can clarify, because it says, as is reasonable and practicable? I don't know if that can be clarified.
Where are you at when you're reading?
A statement shall be conspicuously posted.
Oh, I see.
And then,
Vice President Van Hook, I think there are some exceptions, like if the website is down, for example, and that never happens here, but let's just pretend like it did. There are some exceptions we need to, acknowledge that 24-hour notice is important, and it can include Saturdays, but Sundays and other holidays it doesn't include those. So, I may be not interpreting it correctly, but I feel like as you read through the rest of it, it kind of defines reasonable and practical.
okay. President Anderson, and then also there's designated public places. I don't know if can we specify like district office or specific locations? Because like how are people supposed to know what those places are?
Christine, correct me. It says district office, right, on the agenda, or did I make that up? Yes, it does. If you look at the...
I believe that it does, and online, I think we even give the address. Like, I think it's there online when you do it. Like, to be clear, I've read this like once in my life because I just click on things, but I'm pretty positive the address is also on there too, that it says the district office. I could make that up, but.
And just as a note of clarification, I think it says that because there are times that we will hold a meeting at a school. A general board meeting could be done at one of our schools. It could be done at HCPA. It's not. Typically, it's at the district office, but hasn't always been. So I think that's where it's talking about public meeting spaces, not Ms. Richards' home. So.
Absolutely not.
We're coming over.
You're right, Board Member Reese, because in the past, we have had them at schools, and it's not as easy as you would think, especially when we're trying to make sure YouTube's involved in everything else. So.
Thank you. And just one more. Where it says 24-hour meeting notice is, maybe I'm reading this, sorry, lost my spot. And I don't know exactly where in this policy it states as far as where to find the agendas, but is it possible to include a link to where the agendas, minutes, and the Q&As can be located?
In the policy.
In the policy,
itself.
so like online, when they find the policy, there's a link that they can click on, kind of like the statutes. That's true. Right. But the Q&As aren't on board docs. Right. So is there a way we can include a link that will direct them to where that is? Yeah.
PR, Jessica.
Wouldn't they be on the website to get to board docs?
Right, but if they're in board docs looking at the policy,
Then
Like-
they've just clicked one more.
that will take them directly.
Can I just add, if we add a hyperlink to the policy, if the link ever changes, then we'd have to bring the policy back for a review, and that might not be a practical place to put a hyperlink.
Mr. Walker, that's a valid point. Because I think with final site, all that update, that would be an example of where we would have potentially lost the link, so.
We just switched over our website. If we put those in there, that we would have had to have gone through all of our policies again, is what you're telling us. That's what that is. Sweet.
President Anderson, why would we have to reapprove for a hyperlink change?
Vice President Van Hook, any changes to policy are to be brought to the governing board for approval, so.
I don't think we do that when we do the links for like the ARS statute, so,
Right.
so I don't think that would apply in this case. It's
Right,
just
because I
listed
even
somewhere.
clicked on several of, when I was going through this, I clicked on several of the ARS statutes and they don't work. So if, and they actually link to AZ Ledge website, so if they move it, we're gonna have to reapprove the link? That doesn't make sense.
Can board docs be updated to have the link in there? If we're in there looking at policy, if we're in there looking for agenda, is there a way to put the link for the Q&A in there to Q&A being wherever it is in the website? Am I following along instead of throwing it in a policy?
I need somebody that's expert on this to answer, and I'm looking across the room.
I don't want to complicate things. I just want to actually make it easier so that when anybody's pulling up the policy and looking at it, that they can, where it says, you know, you can find it here, that it allows them a quick link to be able to find it.
Is this something we're considering under, when we're in board docs, we have welcome, meetings, agenda, policies, and then library? Is that something we could add under library? I don't, are we getting off topic also?
Yeah, we are.
For this anyway?
It's just an update to the policy, that's all I'm asking. Just some sort of a link, whether it's under cross-reference.
You did bring up a valid point, though, because if we're bringing this to you and these links aren't correct, we need to double check them before we bring it to you. So we're taking notes on that.
Our Q&A is not in policy, so I guess I'm just kind of struggling why a link on the policy to go to the Q&A when the Q&A is not part of the policy. I get you're trying to find ease of connecting dots, but they would start at our website. They would go to board member, or, well, they go to governing board to find board docs. And under governing board is where our agenda, our Q&A and stuff is under the governing board tab of our website. And that's how you would initially get to board docs to begin with. So they're already passing that area to get to the policy. And the Q&A piece is not part of our policy.
Yeah, I think we're still we're straying from this policy right now, so we can bring that up.
That's okay. I don't want to complicate things. I was just trying to make it easier so that when somebody's looking at the policy, they can easily access everything, but no big deal.
Okay.
7.6, policy BAA, evaluation of school board self-evaluation, first read. And Mrs. Richards. again have
Thank
some
you,
information.
President Anderson. This is the first read of updates to BAA, Evaluation of School Board or Board Self-Evaluation. The language noting an annual meeting for the purpose of a board self-evaluation is being recommended to be removed because it's not statutorily required. So the language allowing the board some discretion was included instead. So you'll see it goes from the board shall meet to the board may meet, should it choose to do so. And it takes out at least annually, not later than November 20th. So it goes to, should it choose to do so for the purpose of appraising its functioning as a board and to evaluate board performance. And one reason, I mean, we learned of this update through ASBA, but then we also wanted to bring it forward because our next board meeting, you guys are scheduled to do your board evaluation. So.
So could we approve this tonight, and then
We
we could
have
make
it.
changes to that future board meeting?
We have it as an action item for you to decide what you want to do, you know, in terms of updating it and/or scheduling the self-evaluation. So,
thank you.
Right now, I'm just asking you to evaluate the language change.
Gotcha. Okay, no, any questions or comments for this one?
President Anderson?
Yes.
I'm curious to know if the ARS reference is incorrect. What's listed is 15-321, and I'm wondering if it should be 15-341.
Well, we can double check that, but Christine, you looked at that already, right? Or-
I pulled it up and it didn't seem like it had anything to do with board evaluations.
But my understanding is these aren't required, and so I'm not sure why it's referencing that if it's not on topic.
Okay. Yeah, if you can just double check that, please.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, I move on to 7.7, policy JLD, guidance and counseling, first read. Mrs. Miller has some proposed changes for us.
President Anderson, governing board members, that we wanted to revise this policy to more closely align to some of the guidance that we've received from the Arizona Department of Education, as well as align more closely to our expectations of that, the role of a school guidance counselor within on our campuses. So you can see some of the things that we've taken out. We've also added some information at the bottom that just aligns closely to the expectation that students that do participate in small peer groups, that they have informed parent consent before they participate in those groups, to make sure that parents are being given information on those groups and completing the permission slip. As well as we do know that some of our guidance counselors do have degrees that allow them to be certified by the Board of Behavioral Health. And while they may hold that licensure, we wanted to make sure to include in the policy that when acting as a school guidance counselor, that they will not act in the scope that that licensure allows them to. Any questions?
President Anderson. And I just want to clarify that there was changes by the Board of Behavioral Health where they, you know, are school counselors are just certified by the Arizona Department of Education. They don't have the license to practice behavioral health, which these changes were made by the board, stating that they can't provide any type of psychotherapy, and there's a ton of things that fall under psychotherapy. So any mental health services cannot be provided, and that if a school counselor crosses that line, that they can actually go in front of the Board of Behavioral Health for pretty much violating the law. And Arizona statute says that if you practice mental health without a license, it's a Class 6 felony. So I wanted to ensure that our counselors are staying within their scope, and also not violating state law, especially due to recent changes. And I thank you so much for putting the time into all this. And I do want to run a couple more things by you. I know this is just first read as well. So same thing with this policy. I'll send this over to you for review. Thank you.
In the second paragraph, which says the program is also integral in crisis, is it supposed to be crisis?
Yes.
Response?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
President Anderson, I guess I have a question based off of what Vice President Van Hook expressed. The whole mental health services cannot be provided, which I agree with you. Counselors are not giving therapy. That is different. But counselors are also crisis responders, which I wish to ensure that our policies are making it very clear to counselors that when a kid is in a mental health crisis, you are doing what you are supposed to for that kid, i.e., if we get notice that a kid is suicidal, if we've had a death at that school, if we've had situations in which, like a school shooting and people are having panic attacks, that is, by extension, a mental health service to help a person when they are in crisis, and that is literally what our counselors are supposed to be for. So is our policy protecting their ability to be crisis responders on campus when they need it? Now, to be clear, this does not mean they're providing therapy beyond that. We're providing services while they are here. We are capable of giving them resources. We often routinely give parents resources and things to go to assist depending on the situation. But I wish to ensure that these, which are extremely important, we even had public comments just today about the importance of current mental health crises. These things happen frequently. So is our policy ensuring that can still happen?
Yes, Board Member Wade. So we have spent quite a bit of time this year with our guidance counselors in explaining their role in responsive services, which would be such things that, like you described, those suicide risk management processes, the threat assessment process, and students that are in those acute crises in the moment. But we've also worked with them to help them understand when that crosses over into that mental health psychological support and what their process is in providing resources to families outside of the district.
Thank you. I just want to make sure our counselors feel empowered to, do their job and help the students in those moments, because it's literally can save lives.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments for 7.7? Yep.
I'm sorry. One more thing. All the legal references weren't on it, so that was the only other thing. Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to our action items. 8.1 is the approval of emergency procurement Cortina water main break. Are there any questions or comments for this before I motion? I motion that the board approve the emergency procurement in the amount of $31,059.55 to Mid-State Mechanical. Anna seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 8.2, this is the discussion regarding board self-evaluation. Yeah. I motion that the governing board not hold a board self-evaluation this year.
Second.
That's Tiffany seconded. All those in favor?
Are we not having
Yeah,
that
do you have comments?
discussion?
Yeah, no, we're moving on. You're in or you're out. I'm just kidding.
Jeez. No. The way I understood this is if the board's going to hold them. Yes. Not necessarily just this year. And I get the policy can change from a shall to a may, and you can take out that time. But I would strongly caution not doing one or not having an expectation of doing a board self-evaluation. We don't get much time to interact with each other, and it's a way that board members can have that time to discuss. And so, I mean, if you're just talking about this year, I took it as, with this new policy, are you going to look at scrapping them all together, or
But my motion was just this
not
year.
do it on the November?
This year, yeah.
Okay. That's not how I read it, sorry.
President
So-
Anderson, board members, I seconded too because I believe several people were going to be gone at our next meeting, so it wouldn't probably make sense this year.
I think we should hold
but-
a board evaluation in the November meeting. President Anderson, I will not be here.
But I was just, because the way your motion was just for this year, so that it's something that we can decide each year, because I agree with you, it is good, but it didn't make sense this year.
All right, so we have Tiffany seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. 8.3 is the selection of a superintendent search firm. Not form. Let's open for discussion.
President Anderson, just going to give a couple 2 cents here. We did get we had some part of a discussion regarding legal advice with a superintendent search firm, and there was a couple different options that were presented. One of those options was that potentially we were asking if it could be done in-house. During my experience on the board, we have done it both ways. We have done an in-house search, and we have used a firm. There's pros and cons to it. I know Ms. Johnson was talking about, if there was any concerns with bias, and when you have a firm that kind of takes any early bias out. But on the other hand, when you have a firm, they don't have a stake in what happens either. And when you do it in-house, those people have definitely a vetted interest on trying to make sure we do it correctly. I personally prefer the in-house method, just because I think that everyone that's talking to these candidates, they have a vested interest in who comes and what happens. And we have some control on what our candidates look like, if you will, versus we've vetted these, and here, these are the ones we believe, based on your criteria, that are your top ones. And then with the last one, we had a whole list of people who were excluded, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have been excluded, but just didn't necessarily check the box. And I know for me, looking through some of them, I didn't understand why it wouldn't have checked a box, and thought, well, that candidate might have been maybe a good candidate. So just giving my 2 cents, I think when you do it in-house, I think you have more, you just have more interest. And I know, Ms. Johnson, that is very difficult, and we had some of those conversations. Typically, it can be done at a slightly lesser cost. There are definitely costs associated to it, but typically you can do it a little bit less expensive that way. So that's been my experience. I liked the in-house process better. Certainly better than this last process. So this last process was very frustrating, and I know as board members, there were several times we felt caught off guard, and it was like, okay, well, we're going to talk about this, and then it was all of a sudden, we're not just talking about this, we're making decisions about this, and it was like, this is the first we're seeing this. So I think it also helps with that communication. I know there was some conversation, if we do an in-house, about having some committees with board members on that. I would caution that, because I would save that your board members need to make that final decision. And so I would definitely have committees made up of different stakeholders, but I would not include a board member on those committees, because they're seeing different things. So I think letting the board members see that candidate for the first time collectively is very important. But I just said that when we were talking about it, that's been my experience. So,
President Anderson, board members, when we talked about it, I was worried about the time and, having the staff and making it happen, but I love all the points you made about the vested interest. Sorry, I like all the points. I don't know. Board member Wade didn't like that, but I like the points that you made about a vested interest, having more control, those type of things, and your expertise in your longevity on the board, and doing it both ways, because we were frustrated with the process previously. And I have the confidence in Mrs. Johnson that she can definitely, make this happen. I know we talked about staff and the overtime hours and what it would take a bit. And now that you've had that to sit with for a second, do you think that that's feasible for you?
President Anderson, members of the board, yes, I think that's feasible for our department to take that on, yes.
Thank you. And I agree with you on the board members on the committees, because it would create prejudice as well.
President Anderson, as far as, I agree with the board members not being part of the committees, but it would be they would be subject to open meeting law, correct?
The committee, if a committee is created by the board, then yes, they are subject to open meeting law. However, there's other things, because of personnel. There are certain aspects of that as well, just the same as we are.
Yes, we would need to check with legal counsel to see what that would look like as far as what information would be shared. Again, remembering that a committee, and when you're doing a screening hiring process, is confidential to the members of that committee, and they're not able to reveal any information before, during, or after process.
Right, and they would be of staff. Is that what for hiring committees, it would be staff members, they would create certain, okay.
That's correct.
There is that confidentiality piece, as you remember, that you had to sign that confidentiality agreement during the process of that hiring. So please note that anyone who would be part of this call it committee or whatever, it needs to be confidential. It's not going to be something that people can come in and be part of. Only if we decide to do those open forums would that happen like we did in the last process.
And I guess maybe a committee is not the right word, more so a panel, a hiring panel, versus a committee that you would have people who screen them, and then what I would recommend is that there is a panel interview with whomever you guys deem appropriate, and then that can help kind of, I don't want to say screen out, but potentially screen out some of the candidates. It just depends on how many we have.
President, go ahead. So look, you've brought up some very valid arguments, which is why I laughed earlier, because it's just the same, feel the same. Something else that I think is a benefit to doing it in-house, and again, sorry, Ms. Johnson, for the gargantuan task afoot, should we decide to proceed with that. One of the things that we talked about is, if you recall, our last process and the number of meetings that we had to have just so they could understand who we are and what we're about, and considering we're starting where we are. Good news, you know us. So that makes it, I think, a little bit easier in that process. Again, sorry for the, labor, but I do think, look, it's a valid argument, the buy-in. And maybe my limited singular experience has left quite a bitter taste. But I like the idea of people caring about how we progress.
Please don't take any of this as I'm opposed to what is being proposed. I just want to bring out some of my concerns if it were to be done in-house. It is the reach of applicants. These firms do have a relationship with other school districts and other entities nationwide, so I think that's an advantage. The capability of our staff, and I'm not talking about not their knowledge and skill, I'm talking just about being overextended, the vacations and everything else. I just want to make sure that, that's taken into account. I was in the audience during one of the last times, I believe you were on the board, whenever we went from Birdwell, and then we went to Thomason, I believe. And so sometimes it feels like friends get picked or asked to apply, and it feels, for lack of a better word, icky, that, was that a choice that was truly in the hands of the board and things like that. And we are a completely different administration. So honestly, I'm not worried about it, but these are just things, if I'm thinking of it, other people are thinking of it. And I just wanted to state it out there. But each and every one of you, have brought up excellent points of why in-house would make sense at this point in time. But I just wanted to publicly state those. Thank you.
President Anderson, I agree. Those are all valid points. One of the things I think there could be bias as far as search firms too, if they have certain candidates and that they would like to bring forward, or, some of the candidates that we didn't get to see. I don't know, I'm not accusing, but I'm just saying that could happen with a search firm as well.
Sure. sorry, just to counter that, it's just they don't get to work with them, right?
Right,
But
yes.
so it'd be here.
Something else to your point, President Anderson, and we discussed, is to, and I think this is definitely worth the money to advertise nationally. I think that also is a big part, and I don't know last time, did we stay to the state or what? I literally didn't live here, so I did not care, but I do think that is a valid point, and I think that, I don't know if it necessarily absolves your concerns, President Anderson, because I think they're valid, but I do think it at least helps if we are casting a broader net in that process at least, rather than just keeping it, to the state.
I just wanted to make sure we had that reach. We had that capability to really reach like another firm could. That's a valid point. So thank you.
And I think I agree, all your points are valid, that it's not the lack of their ability, it's time. And we were talking about timing. We are on a tight timeline. And we were talking about some differences, working backwards regarding when an offer would need to be made. And there's also things, you can also do letter of intent to, if we're having to wait a little bit on a time frame. But, and I think that, I don't think there's any escaping it, because I know that everyone reaches out to people they know and say, hey, this position's open, apply for it. And so whether they're applying through us directly or a national firm, and I agree, but like you said, we are a completely different administration. And I think that where we've come and the documentation we do now, and the tracking, and who spoke to who touched it, who reviewed it, and I think that makes a difference, because everything's documented, and we are a completely different administration.
So do we have to motion?
Yeah. So I motion that the governing board use in-house to conduct a superintendent search.
Second.
That's seconded by Tiffany. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations.
So President Anderson, I'm assuming at this point between Ms. Johnson and Mr. Moore, they'll have to come up with a proposal on cost to come before the board.
Thank you.
Board Member Reese, can you say that again, because Ms. Johnson didn't hear?
Oh, just that you work with Mr. Moore to try and come up with a cost that comes before the board.
Future agenda items for 9.1, any requests? We mentioned the link got brought up if we want to have discussion on the website and anything regarding making it more efficient, but I figured now let's, I think there might be a better way to handle that. If there's nothing else, let's move on to adjournment. I motion that this meeting adjourn.
Second.
Oh, that was Amanda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Good night, everyone.